So you told me that you had a conversation when I was talking to you about off camera about the collective sort of coddling of society and the direction that we're going into. You said that you had a conversation with Dr. Drew and you guys sort of had a theory about what's going on in society where we see all of this.
Yes. Dr. Drew and I have a podcast we do together, and we also have many theories because Dr. Drew and I have been working together for like 20 some odd years, and he's very interested on like what's going on and how are we getting to this place and who's propelling this. And the theory, though, going way back was Dr. Drew, when I was doing Loveline with him in the 90s, late 90s, we're doing the radio show, he used to constantly say to me that the woman's perspective and the woman's approach was more evolved. Like we should become essentially more like women because the man's world is aggression and sexuality and like all these things we don't want. And the woman's path is a much better path. It's a more evolved path. And like, I kind of get it. Like the old days, caveman, drag him by the hair, all that stuff. We want to evolve. And so he would always say like, we need to evolve a little more toward the women's way of thinking. And I was like, okay, it's hard to argue with that. But what happened was we just kept going. And now that's the new way of thinking. And politicians and pundits on TV, they've all sort of evolved. Have you ever seen so many guys wearing bracelets? Look, my entire youth, I never saw one of my friend's dad rocking 6 bracelets. Now all the guys are wearing bracelets, and you go, well, what's that have to do with anything? It's an indicator. The more guys who wear bracelets, the more of that we're going to have. And so I believe that women are more feelings-based and men are a little more nuts and bolts in numbers. And that's probably why there's more women who teach kindergarten and more men are mechanical engineers. That's our wiring. But we've gotten a lot of the mechanical engineer guys to kind of push over toward the feeling side of the world, and that's where all this craziness is coming from.
But it's only a disease of the West.
Yes.
We
have to be out of problems.
Yeah, right.
You have to be out of problems. You cannot have problems. If you have problems, then we need the engineer guy building a dam.
I literally just said that in my book. I talk about that conservatism. Everybody's a conservative when there's actually real problems, right? Like nobody's debating bathroom signs when there's actually a war going on or a Great Depression. Everybody's suddenly counting their pennies, financially aware. Everyone's a conservative. It's only in times of remarkable privilege that liberalism and leftism can find a breeding ground, because then you can go, I don't have any problems, so let me just kind of, complain about things that don't really bother me, but I need something to fight. And I think that actually has something to say. I think there's something natural that happens, like the human spirit. If you just look at human history, men need to triumph. And when I say men, I mean men and women. Using the term, I'm not going to say humankind, right? Mm-hmm. But men need to triumph. And if we don't have anything to triumph, right, this weird arc of over civilization happens where you're like, well, now that everything's okay, we still need to feel like we triumphed something, right? We're not the generation that ended World War I. We didn't end World War II. Everything's kind of been okay here for a long time, which is why everything is suddenly not okay. It's because things are peaceful. People don't know how to be peaceful in society. And I think that what makes me nervous about that is then you start getting these conversations like what Dr. Drew said years ago. How long ago was it that he proposed that?
Probably 20-something years.
20 years ago, right? Someone says we should start, looking at the way women are, and men need to be a little bit more like women. But that's a Western idea that is not being adopted in the East. And people have a way of not looking at the global stage, right? So while we are teaching our kids to pick their genders, have you ever seen a Chinese kid with a calculator at 5 years old? Because it scares me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what is he doing? Is he calculating that quickly? Like, what's going on? What's he doing? Right. What's he doing? Because they're becoming the male calculating quickly competitive spirit. And there is this fallacy. There's this idea that because we're dominant now, we're always going to be dominant. That's just not how it works. That's not how. If you know anything about human history, people are on top and then suddenly they're on the bottom. So it's important for us to hold the line in times of peace to make sure that we don't start weakening ourselves. And I think that that's kind of what we're seeing today. People are just weakening our society because we don't know what to do with peace. We just want to go out and kind of just bash things over the head or triumph something.